Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz. So I'm aware that when I sit down to work in my office, I'm like a bullet train. I mean, I work so fast and I could go nonstop for many hours at a time. And I just want to get things done, and it's hard to take a break other than a brief one for lunch. Well, in various books and other podcast interviews, I keep hearing about how good it is to take a few moments, lasting from some number of seconds to a few minutes, whether it's standing up and walking around, well, I guess we should do that anyway, or just stopping work and focusing on breathing and just staring off into space for a bit. And I've even put reminders in my calendar, but I just end up ignoring them and I keep working like a madman. Well, by talking about it now, I'm verbalizing it. I'm officially committing to the world that I'm going to take several pauses a day. And it's so good to take these breaks and recalibrate. And my understanding is that it's actually cumulative and it ends up being even more beneficial than we can imagine. So I suggest we all try to take several breaks a day. Put it in your calendar, make it an alarm on your phone. Anyway, if you missed last week's episode, it was a revisit of filmmaker Caleb Jordan Lee with East West Productions. It was an incredible interview. Be sure to check that out. And today's episode is with Fallon Carter, the founder and creative director of Fallon Carter Events. Named one of the top wedding planners in the world by Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, and Brides Magazine, Fallon connects Southern hospitality with international luxury. Her events have been featured in Vogue, Martha Stewart Weddings, and Brides Magazine, just to name a few. She is also a speaker, and in 2020, Fallon was the event chair of Wish Upon a Wedding, New York. So enjoy this conversation with Fallon Carter. Hey, Fallon, it is so cool to have you on the show. This is really a blast.
I know. I'm very excited. Thank you for having me.
And I've known about you for so long. So and we're doing this in person.
I know.
So,
it's so cozy in here.
Yeah, this is neat. I used to do all the interviews in person until the pandemic. And then,
obvious reasons.
And then since then, I'm like, I don't need to go fly to LA and New York. No, we're good. But, where I want to start with you, Fallon, is there anything in your childhood that kind of indicated who you would be today? Like, did you have a passion in any way when you were young for anything related to the event world or to designing or fashion or anything like that? Like, what was your thing as a kid?
I consider myself probably the youngest person in my friend group when I was young that had Martha Stewart Living as a magazine.
That's a good one. All right. That's a hint.
Home economics and wood shop were probably my favorite subjects in middle school. Like, I loved the concept of baking. I loved the concept of building things. But I was always, even from starting with my Sweet 16, I was always trying to host a party. Oh. I was sending out little invitations and making preparations and plans and always trying to do something where I'm hosting people and entertaining them. So yeah, who knew?
That's wild, because so many people I've interviewed had something when they were really young related to this. I forget who it was. There was one party planner that talked about how when he was 5, he would move the furniture, in the living room and do it in different designs. Yeah. But I'm curious. So then I know you grew up in Mississippi. You got a degree in political science. Well, that's a good one.
I would love silence.
That's a good one. But political science, and then you plan to go to law school. So yes. Where is the disconnect that, how did that, you just didn't think you could do it full time in terms of?
Now looking back, I'm like, darn, I should have gone to law school. But ultimately, a friend of mine was getting married in Paris. And my friend's sister was getting married in Paris. She was like, come, be my guest. And I was like, absolutely. So I was thinking it was going to be this experience of just croissants and champagne all day. Right. It was not. The wedding, 5 days before the wedding, her wedding dress had been shipped. It was a Nigerian wedding. And her wedding dress was shipped from Nigeria. And when we opened the box, it was a disaster. Oh. So it's kind of like I fell into this muddy pit of a wedding experience. That was terrible for someone. And everything just clicked. I ended up helping them figure it out. We found a new dress on the day of the wedding. I'm helping her get zipped in. I'm not even a guest anymore. I was a day of coordinator. Huh. And that experience was it felt like the first time I was able to achieve something and see it through. And I think something that I was fearful of going into law or even the political industry was right. I probably won't be able to see much through because politics is what it is. It's you're probably just going to keep talking and you won't really be able to achieve anything. And I felt so much joy that I was able to see something all the way through.
Oh, okay.
In a creative manner. And I just like that feeling of like, she's down the aisle now. We've done our job. She's married. It looks perfect. There's no more problems. I've solved them all. So I came back. I was working at an aerospace company at the time. I quit my job. I took the money out of my 401k. I moved to New York.
Whoa.
And I instantly made the decision that I'm going to pursue becoming a wedding professional. Now, granted, that wedding that I'd been a pseudo guest was also the first wedding I'd ever attended in my life.
Oh, really?
So my expectations of what weddings were was like, oh, they're all multi-day Nigerian-esque weddings with like that are in chateaus in France near Versailles, like rude awakening. But anywho, yeah. So I took what I had. I went to a community college. I took a course on event planning that was 4 weeks long. Got some certificate that I have no idea what happened to it.
Yeah.
And just literally fell into the industry, faked everything until I figured it out. And
in what ways? I mean, I'm curious about this because I can relate to a lot of this. In what ways did you like fake it? And like just put yourself out as a wedding planner who had already been doing it, and just I mean, how did you do that? Like, how do you make that transition?
I mean, there's so much you don't know until you do. Of course, you do things a few times and make some mistakes. But I assumed that I also had to do the flowers. So like my first wedding, I was like, yeah, I guess I'll do the flowers and we'll do everything. So I remember it was in Virginia. It was at a Kimpton hotel.
Okay.
And I remember the day before just having all of these flowers, all these hydrangeas, and I'm trying to keep hydrangeas alive, which now we know is a terrible thing to do. But I'm there. I'm like, am I supposed to do this? Creating a run of show, really learning how to talk to other vendors, finding other vendors.
Right,
There's so many things you're like, but
you jumped into the deep end.
I jumped into the deep end, and she loved her wedding.
Yeah.
And then she recommended me to a friend, and I'm like, so we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is it. This is it.
Wow. And then from there, I'm assuming like just word of mouth, that kind of thing.
The photographer from that first wedding, he lived in New York, and he was the one who recommended me to my first New York wedding.
Oh.
And that one was a real struggle because I'm coming from DC, Maryland.
Yeah, New York's totally
different. I knew nothing about New York.
Yeah, it's intense.
It was intense. Yeah. And then I didn't realize how little your 401k money will go in New York. And so I got a temp job. Like I was a temp going to multiple different offices. And literally in lunch breaks from my temp job, I was going to meet florists and I was going to meet photographers just to like, I guess I have to build a roster of people to call. Like I literally am just figuring it out.
Wow.
From like not having things to tell my clients.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked out.
Well, what would you say is, if you could define your personal signature, as a planner, designer, what kind of distinguishes you if people think of you, like the photographer who's thinking about you, not at that time, but I mean nowadays with the experience you have, how would you describe your angle on this, on the business?
I mean, I usually tell people my aesthetic or vibe is probably like Southern traditional or some type of take on a modern traditional. Just because I'm inherently a Southern girl, I like etiquette. I like things to match, but I'm still like, I'm a Black chick, so I still like things to be kind of cool and a little edgy. So at the same time, I've traveled a lot in the world and I understand the importance of just the basics. And sometimes you can keep things simple and they're still absolutely spectacular and you don't have to do too much extra stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nature plays a beautiful role in what we do. The aesthetics of architecture are easy just to lean into, but sometimes you don't need to cover things up. You just need to let them speak for themselves and just enhance them a bit.
Yeah.
Simple.
That's really. So what is your process generally like with the client? I mean, do you spend like kind of social time with them? Do you have a questionnaire? Like, how do you kind of get to know so that you can start determining the direction you're going to go, the vibe of the party, the design aesthetic, if there's any motif, any themes, like what's your process to figure this out?
Well, one of the first things I ask my clients is, can you send me 5 non-wedding related images from the both of you? And I say, this is either you doing a hobby, a trip that you've recently gone on, share insight on favorite hotels or properties, or even just places in your home that are important to you. And from those images, you can really tell a lot of it about couples and kind of what they deem important and who they are. I like to listen more than I like to ask too many questions. So I'll probably just, when we're having an initial kickoff conversation, the only question I usually ask is, what's the intention behind this event? Why are we having this wedding? Why are you not eloping? Like, what's
I love
the
that
reason?
question. Okay. Yeah.
And most of the time, people, it's to bring families together. There's an underlining thing that they want to highlight. Or it's like a lot of my couples are like kind of like first generation Black wealth, give or take. So it's like they're trying to create a legacy. They're trying to create a memory. Their parents have never had big weddings. So it's like, it's my responsibility now to bring a grandma and a great-great-grandma who haven't had this level of luxury. How do I make them also feel inclusive and comfortable and that things are accessible in this experience? So I want to know, what is it that we're trying to do? What's the intention? And then through those images, I can figure out kind of who they are. Are they playful? Are they a little more serious? Do they like art? Do they not? And then from there, we create a design that I think represents who they are, but it also helps us find a venue and a setting, which is the first major step for me. I want to find a place that feels comfortable to them to celebrate this occasion.
Yeah. So in terms of your creative process to bring that to life and to come up with the specifics, I don't know, do you take walks? Do you wake up in the middle of the night taking notes? While you're talking to them, are you jotting down ideas? Like how typically does your creative process work?
Maybe I think I do take notes. I haven't even dug deep about it. Once I look at those images, I put together a Pinterest board first.
Okay. All right. There you go.
Also my Pinterest images are never images of, or the images I'm sourcing are never images of like, here's a wedding table scape. Here's exactly what I think your ceremony arch is going to look like. It's more of like, what's the feeling that we're going for? So it's like, I find a lot of my imagery are people cheersing glasses or people on a dance floor or just the energy you feel of when you see a lot of landscape. Because a lot of my clients are just into being outside and I love outside.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I'm always like, don't put me in a ballroom because I'm not going to have fun.
Yeah,
I'll do it, but I'd love to be outside. So through the process of just getting the images that make them feel something, whether it's even just water, showing them texture of silks and, grass blowing in the wind, like, does this feel like if you closed your eyes and thought of your wedding weekend, do you feel this in a board of images? And I get it till they're like, this is the feeling. Cool. All right. Now let's design from here.
Do you have any stories or a story that you can think of where you describe a little bit of what it is that maybe that they said or they showed you and then how you manifested it? Anything come to mind when I ask that?
I'm working with a couple right now, and one of the words that the groom said is he wants this experience to feel thoughtful. And when he said that, I was like, I've never heard that word used before. Yeah. Fun, energetic, we want to party, like all of those, but thoughtful, that's a new one. So I haven't manifested it yet, it's coming, but it's really been putting a lot more focus on my design and how does everything that the guest interact with feel as though we've taken an extra step to think it through a little bit more and it's thoughtful for them. So nothing yet, but I'm excited about this one because it actually cool. Is making me think.
Yeah, it's making me think.
I know.
That's good. I want to make sure that you're aware of two other shows that are on the Wedding Biz Network. First are 2 seasons of Stop and Smell the Roses, hosted by well-known event designer Preston Bailey. Preston speaks with such an honest and sincere voice. This is the only platform in which you can hear this legend of the industry share secrets to his success. Also, check out the 140 episodes of The Business of Being Creative, hosted by Sean Lowe. Sean's consulting firm, The Business of Being Creative, is full of topics and advice for any creative business with a focus on the event and interior design industry. You can find both shows at theweddingbiznetwork.com or on your cell phone's podcast app for both Stop and Smell the Roses and The Business of Being Creative. I'm wondering also how you deal with challenges. Like I find, I'm on the music side of the business. And I find, and then even with my own wedding or weddings, I'm on my second, but this is it for sure.
Final.
Yeah. But there's always something that goes wrong. Always. And I remember I'm no longer in my band, but I used to be the trumpet player, the MC and the lead it. And something would happen that would make me tense. Band members could say, Andy, you got to chill out. But it bothered me that they could see it. Like if they could see it, what about the guests and my clients and the planner? And I had to learn things like just walk relaxed, don't walk so stiff and fast and, keep it under wraps and all of that. And then eventually, I obviously with experience, I got, seasoned enough to know how to handle that kind of anxiety. But how do you handle the challenges? And do you have any stories of a really big one that you ran into and how you overcame it?
I want to say I'm handling challenges better now as I see them as I've changed my perspective on what a challenge is. I used to think challenges were just like, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm a failure if I don't fix this.
Right.
Why did this challenge even come my way? Like, how did I not see this coming? So there was a lot of...
you beat yourself up.
I always beat myself up when I'm like, how did I not remember to do this? How did I not know to do this? And I think not through several sessions of therapy, I've come to see
Me too. I'm right there with you. Okay.
I've come to see challenges as an opportunity for greatness and an opportunity to make things better.
Yeah.
Instead of resisting them, it's now better for me just to go with them. And even with when I'm working with my clients, I'm trying to make them see that as well. Like, nothing about this experience is going to go perfect. No one's ever said wedding planning is so fun and easy. Let's do it all the time, like ever. So when we approach things that don't go our way, whether we're losing a venue, somebody else snagged our date, or the transportation company and said they can no longer do this, it's like, okay, so then how are we now making it better?
Yes.
How do we get it to now work in our favor?
Yeah.
And as a Christian, I'm always like, well, God didn't want it that way anyway. So how do we make it the way it's supposed to be? And usually it's always opening us up for something better than what we expected.
Yeah.
But having that perspective and being able to see that took a lot of hard work internally, and also understanding the mistakes that are happening are perfecting the planner that I will be in the future.
I love that.
What the business I want to run, like you're saying, Brian Raffinelli does the White House events and Marcy's, does but what they've built took tons of mistakes and tons of time. And I'm somehow expecting that I want to get it right the first time.
Right.
Like, no, it's going to take some time and you're going to fall on your face and it's going to hurt and it's going to look terrible. But all you have to do is keep going to the next event. And now you need to hire someone to pick up the trash after the event.
No, I agree. Like if you believe that there is a better solution, then I believe we will find it.
Yes.
It's just like finding what that is.
Yep.
So I'm totally there with you. What about the business aspect? Like, I remember in the beginning for me, I had a sense of business, but it felt like two completely different things. There's the artistry, the creative aspect of it, and the creative side of our brain. And then monetizing, making a business out of it, being able to hire people, manage people, execute on that side of the business. How do you how do you balance the two, or not balance the two, but how do you work that out? How do you think about the two?
I think that's been a challenge, running a business and understanding how to run this business, just because in my opinion, there aren't that many examples of this is exactly how you do it. Everyone has their way. Everyone has a take. Everyone has a method. And what I'm coming to realize is you kind of got to find your own way of finding that balance, finding what works. I like being creative, but I really love running a business.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
And I want to run more businesses. And now I'm seeing you're going to have to find the right. I've scaled before. I've scaled fast. And it blew up in my face. I hired too many people. I didn't have the right foundation.
I relate to that. Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing as a leader, and I didn't know how to manage people. And I expected once I hired people that I could just walk away. Like, oh, well, now that they're here, they'll just do it, and then I can go and do this other business. And that was a terrible decision. And so now I'm realizing the foundation is necessary before you're able to walk away from your business in any way, shape, or form. And so now I'm trying to find, how do I create better systems that will allow me to have more creativity and have a business that runs smoothly with people operating it, but operating it the way that I'd like them to. And kind of, I think everyone references the McDonald's kind of method. It's like, you don't really need that many smart people. You just need a really great system and really great, processes that people can follow.
Yeah,
and they know exactly like, okay, Fallon Carter would approve of this. I don't even have to take it to her. She would approve because it meets all of these checkpoints. So my focus right now in my business is how do I create Fallon Carter as a brand that has a really great foundation and doesn't require me in the day-to-day all the time so that I can have more leisure.
Wow, I love that. God, there's so much. Part of what I'm thinking about here is you also specialize right now in destination weddings. So to me, that adds a whole nother layer, right? It's even more complicated. You're going to, whether it's in the United States or it's outside overseas, you're dealing with, local creative partners in different places, and you're having to manage all of that and the transportation it just seems so incredibly complicated being a destination planner.
I like complicated.
Okay. Interesting.
I think I thrive in areas of, I think we all do. I think if you're in this industry, you somehow thrive off of high stress.
That's an interesting point. Right. But why would we do this?
Why would we do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've probably been approaching various mental breakdowns at some point. But you're like, I keep going. But I'm a gold star chick. It's like, I want to prove that I can. And as a destination planner, I've never worked at the same venue twice until this year. So every year, every season, it's a whole new destination. It's new language barriers. It's new everything. And I'm proud of the fact that I can say that, but also I'm like, wow, I really admire people who do weddings like kind of in the same 3 venues, and they're able to like really shine because they don't have to move around. But I'm moving around every single instance and having new hurdles every single wedding. So that's why I was like, the systems have never been put in place because I'm kind of always learning something new every 2 seconds.
Yep.
So that's why it's really important for me this year to be like, if I want this business to truly grow to where I know I want to take it, I have to get a better foundation that understands what happens when we work on the West Coast, what happens when we work in the Caribbean, Europe,
right.
Every place that we've touched our hands, we now know how to work there. Let's create a model so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time.
Love that. Also just a little bit ago, you were talking about, you'd love to even run more businesses. What about, I believe you have some thoughts about additional revenue generators.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about with that?
I've started the We Do Collective, which is selling templates to like budget-friendly brides. And I'm really trying to kind of massage that out to see what else I can do in that market. Just as you're focusing on a market of volume. I think some people are kind of focused on going towards educating other planners or educating other photographers, and the education's great. But there's a whole market of people who have, not luxury money, if you, for lack of better words, but they have honest $30K, $50K to spend on a wedding and they still need help. How do I service that demographic as well? So that's one avenue that I'm seeking. And I stumbled upon that, of course, from the being the host of the Betches Brides podcast. It was just, I was like, wow, there's so many people who are asking me questions, but from a budget angle. And my thoughts are always like, I'm so focused on luxury and big budgets, but there's so few of those weddings, and we're all kind of like fighting for them, and we want them, but their stress is high and they have higher demands. And it's like, why would I not find an avenue that can reach people that are in mass and volume, and my headaches might be less?
Yeah. No, get that. And also you mentioned, and I was going to ask you, as host of the Betches Brides podcast, which is a kick-ass podcast, by the way. Yeah, you're awesome, Fallon. What are some of the biggest issues that brides have that planners should be aware of?
I would say there's just a lack of education, and it's only because we also, I think, send out really mixed signals when it comes to what we're telling our consumers as potential brides. Pricing is just so crazy right now, and everyone, there's sticker shock in the immediate. People aren't always knowing what market values are of things. And I think there's just, lack of education is probably like one of the major things. Like, I did not know a wedding costs this much. Like, you can gauge and understand, but no one can look at a picture of a wedding and say like, I can look at a picture of a wedding like, oh, okay, cool. That probably costs $1 million too. Like, right. But not a normal person can't look at a wedding and be like, oh, I can't have that. I thought it was all accessible. So I think there's a world in which I've always said I've wanted to make wedding planning easy for anyone. And I think in puzzles, I love a spreadsheet, and I love, organizing thoughts and ideas. And I think everyone can have a beautiful wedding within whichever means that they are seeking. And I think we're just selling this concept of like your wedding has to be big and bountiful and fabulous and flowers everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
When a wedding is just you physically getting married, it can look like anything. And so I think that the biggest thing is the inspiration that we continue to push out to what a wedding is, let alone what a marriage is, to our clients is like something that I'd love to tweak a hair.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. And it's interesting with all the glamour of the big celebrity weddings and everything. I think people, not that they feel bad, but they feel like they've got to have this over the top. I think it's way too much pressure for couples, for bridal couples.
That's exactly what it is way too much pressure. And at the end of the day, I'm like, these celebrities sometimes don't even pay for what they're getting. Like, they're exchanging services for exposure.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand.
And people don't understand that.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not going to say that to them, but it's like, there's just a lack of education of how this system really works. And I want brides or nearly weds to always just feel more confident in whatever they're doing is going to be beautiful as long as you're getting married and the people that you love are in the room. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, so. I was going to say, it's the feeling. That's what it's all about. It's the emotion. Yeah. What does success mean to you?
Peace.
Yeah.
I've tried to mark success as like, oh, I want to be on this list, or I want to do this wedding, or I want to have this underneath my belt. But what I've realized is that I was kind of tying my self-worth to accolades and opportunities. And that was leading to self-destructive habits and self-criticism and imposter syndrome, and the list will continue. So now what I'm deeming success as is a level of peace, enjoying the process, not having the answer.
Love this. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I'll still be me.
Right.
I'll still be Fallon. And that way no one can take anything away from me if I don't tie it to something that is out there.
I like that. Well, Fallon, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Fallon Carter. Check out her website, which is FallonCarterEvents.com. Fallon is spelled Fallon, FallonCarterEvents.com. You can find her on social media, particularly on Instagram at Fallon Carter Events. And be sure to check out the show notes with event pics that our guest provided at our website at theweddingbiz.com. And next week's guest is going to be a brand new interview with Jennifer Stein, the editor-in-chief, publisher, and co-owner of Destination I Do and Destination Media. And finally, be sure to follow us, particularly on Instagram at The Wedding Biz, and we'll catch you next week.